The Heart Easy System is a 12-part course that explains the training system used in all BC Endurance fitness programs. The following lesson and the accompanying conversation between student-athlete Charlene R. and Coach Brian Clark will help you better understand the system so you can use it to improve your training and racing, as it did for Charlene in this case study. Unit 2, Lessons 2, 3, and 4. How to build racing ability. In this unit, Charlene gets a handle on defining 5 racing abilities: stamina, power, tempo, speed, and endurance. Each definition is couched in terms of the ability to do something. Stamina, for instance, is the ability to run long and slow. But Charlene still wonders how to build her stamina. The answer, according to the Heart Easy system, is by doing long, slow workouts according to the rules dictated by the system. And the rules are always couched in terms of exertion, not necessarily a target pace. Of course, pace is always a factor, but it isn't the determining factor in the system. Thus, the stamina building rule is to run all stamina workouts without exceeding the comfortable level on the following intensity scale: very comfortable, comfortable, tolerably uncomfortable, uncomfortable, and very uncomfortable. Charlene realizes that her training is mostly marked by discomfort. And she gets it right away that constant discomfort is ultimately unsustainable. Yet, there's still a place for discomfort in the Heart Easy system. That place is in training for endurance, the ability to sustain uncomfortable race exertion. In other words, endurance workouts have discomfort built in by the rules. On the other hand, she learns to build tempo ability comfortably, in spite of the contradictory advice she's often gotten from her coaches. Even hill training, which is supposed to be uncomfortable according to the experts, is best done at a relaxed, comfortable, and sustainable level in the Heart Easy system. Now that we know how to measure exertion during a race or workout, Lesson 2 asks the question, how do we build racing ability? The answer is by doing workouts. Any workout can build ability, but your workouts should be deliberately designed to achieve a specific ability-building purpose, whether, as we shall see in this lesson, for building stamina or endurance. Here are 2 ability-building workouts, each mostly run at a slow tempo. Why is it that the 2-hour run builds stamina and the 4-hour run builds endurance? Obviously, the 4-hour run is twice as long as the 2-hour run. But is there another feature of their exertion that distinguishes them? We've seen that we can build stamina by training at light exertion, shown here in red. Light exertion is a slow and comfortable conversational pace that feels like you're holding yourself back. But there's a rule for building stamina. Intensity should not rise above the comfortable level on this intensity scale. Let's consider the intensity component of exertion next. From the perspective of intensity, discomfort rises as duration increases. Thus, once the pace begins feeling even tolerably uncomfortable, you know you've gone too long for your stamina building purpose. In this sense, endurance is the ability to sustain uncomfortable exertion by deliberately allowing exertion to rise to the uncomfortable level. Conversations on the Heart Easy System. Lesson 2. Building Race Ability by Doing Workouts. In this lesson, Charlene learns the rules for building two abilities: stamina, where intensity does not rise above the comfortable level, and endurance, where intensity does not rise above the uncomfortable level. Okay, tell me about this.
Okay, there's different levels of intensity, and it just gets more uncomfortable the longer you go. And when you build your endurance, you just can sustain it or tolerate it to a longer period of time.
Yeah, if you build your endurance, that's what's going to happen. But that's not what this is saying.
It's not.
You're in the ballpark, of course. The main thing is that the longer you go, the more uncomfortable it becomes, right? If you want to build stamina, that's the black curve. How high can you go?
Oh, to tolerable.
No, that's not what it's saying. If you listen, it says if you've gone to tolerable, you know you've gone too far, too much. In a previous slide, it showed that the rule is that you can only go up to comfortable in a stamina run. Okay.
I missed it.
So we're going to go back now. First of all, light exertion. See what light exertion is here? At the end of this slide, it talks about is a slow and comfortable conversational pace that feels like you're holding yourself back. But there's a rule for building stamina. Intensity should not rise above the comfortable level on this intensity scale. Okay, so what you're going to learn now is the rules for building each one of these abilities. And you got to obey the rules, otherwise you put yourself in jeopardy. So the first rule is for building stamina. It can't become uncomfortable, even tolerably uncomfortable. It's the rule. Must remain comfortable. Okay? You have a 4-hour run and a 2-hour run. And usually what I think of as a 2-hour run is a long run. But a 4-hour run is very long. The longer you go, the more uncomfortable it becomes. And it's okay to become uncomfortable to build your endurance, because that's what endurance is. It's the ability to sustain uncomfortable exertion. So you sustain it by doing it, practicing it. So there are two different abilities here and two different rules. So what do you think the rule is for building endurance?
You have to go a little bit higher than comfortable.
Yeah, it has to get tolerably uncomfortable or uncomfortable.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're not really building the ability to sustain uncomfortable exertion, right? Uncomfortable is the name of the game for this particular ability. And there are ways you can do it. You can go out and do a race. And that becomes uncomfortable usually, so that'll build your endurance. Or you can do a workout. And there are different ways to build endurance in a workout. We're not going to get into right now, but the point is, you haven't got the rule yet. The rule is you can't go above uncomfortable. In other words, you don't have to go to very uncomfortable to build endurance. You just have to build uncomfortable, because that's what the ability is. The ability to sustain uncomfortable race exertion, right? So that's all you need to do, is get it into the uncomfortable range. BC Endurance programs teach racer athletes how to structure 5 ability building workouts by the rules. For example, once you can do a power workout correctly according to the rules, you can repeat the power exertion structure with greater awareness, more effectiveness, and less supervision in future training programs. Power is the ability to run relaxed at race pace for the first half of any racing distance. Power also refers to the amount of muscle strength you can apply to a run. The power component of exertion is especially useful when measuring the right amount of muscle power for uphill running. You can measure the leg strength you're applying to an uphill run as gentle, held back, relaxed, pressed, forced, and strained. So how much muscle power is optimal for building muscle power in the hills? In other words, which of these 6 levels is the best level every time you do a power workout, such as this one that involves running uphill in 4 10-minute intervals? Here's the rule. All uphill running should be slow enough to remain relaxed. You don't need to press the pace in order to build power as an ability. Pressing takes more effort, it increases the risk of injury, and it's ultimately unsustainable. Conversations on the Heart-Easy System. Lesson 3. The Rules of Right Exertion. What's right for building power? In this lesson, Charlene learns how to build her leg strength. Gentle, held back, relaxed, pressed, forced, and strained. What I'm suggesting here is that power is the ability to run relaxed for the first half of any racing distance.
I would have never put relaxed and race pace in the same sentence before today. For like the mile, the 5K, I kind of thought you had to go
flat out right from the start.
Or close to it.
Yeah, okay.
And that wasn't working for me.
Yeah, of course it wasn't, because you didn't understand how to pace yourself.
No. Okay. I guess race pace to me is always like all out. I always felt like people were telling me before when I was asking about how to pace myself in a race. And to me, race pace was like your ultimate goal.
Power also refers to the amount of muscle strength you can apply to a run. Power is a word that has 2 definitions in our system. And you should be aware of this. Power refers to how much muscle strength you're using at any given moment during a run. And we've measured it. You can measure the leg strength you're applying to an uphill run as gentle, held back, relaxed, pressed, forced, and strained. So how much muscle power is optimal for building muscle power in the hills? In other words, which of these 6 levels is the best level every time you do a power workout, such as this one that involves running uphill in 4 10-minute intervals? Here's the rule. All uphill running should be slow enough to remain relaxed. Okay, I'll stop for a moment there while you write that down, because this is really important, right?
Yes.
It's the rule.
That's what I was doing this morning on Montserrat. I was trying to not kill myself going up that hill, and I was keeping relaxed. It did mentally feel long, but that was like the first time I enjoyed running up Montserrat.
That was interesting. Yeah, first time you enjoyed running uphill. It felt like it was a long time getting up the hill, right? You could have gone up faster, but you at least enjoyed it.
Yeah, and there was a point in the beginning, and I wasn't going relaxed. I was kind of bordering pressed and relaxed at one point, and then it felt uncomfortable, and I was like, wow, all right, this is like what we're talking about here. But I would always kind of be going in that range going up Diamond Head before, over whether it's going in the other direction or not. And it would be miserable by the time I would get to the top and had to come down. I felt like I didn't have enough to keep going downhill, even just going a little bit hard. And I actually ran really well downhill today because I relaxed myself going up the hill.
You don't need to press the pace in order to build power as an ability. Lesson 4 anticipates the tempo workouts you'll do in a BC Endurance training program. Tempo is the ability to run comfortably at race pace for the first half of your goal race distance. Since comfortable race pace running is the ability you want to build, it's incumbent on you to practice comfortable race pace running. As you may recall, comfort is an aspect of the intensity component of exertion. Tempo training, as opposed to speed work, is generally marked by relatively high mileage at relatively low intensity. Since intensity rises as duration increases, you'll need a way to keep intensity from rising above the comfortable level. Again, you'll have to consider the exertion structure of your tempo workouts. For example, tempo intervals could be 2 minutes long, as they are here while training at 10K race pace, or they could be 12 minutes long at marathon pace. But their common feature is the comfort you experience during the tempo and the recovery intervals. Remaining comfortable during tempo training should be your constant and major focus. Thus, the tempo training rule requires you to adjust your tempo interval duration so intensity never rises above the comfortable level. The faster the pace of your goal race, the shorter your tempo intervals have to be to avoid even tolerable discomfort. Conversations on the Heart-Easy System. Lesson 4. Tempo intervals. Comfortable race pace running. In this lesson, Charlene begins to understand the distinction between short duration, comfortable race pace running that builds tempo ability and longer duration, uncomfortable race pace running that builds endurance. Tempo is the ability to run what?
To run at your goal race distance.
Yeah, but the key there you missed is the ability to run comfortably for the first half of your goal race distance. There are a bunch of things in there that you have to acknowledge. Mm-hmm. First of all, that your race could be a mile or it could be a marathon. Mm-hmm. Your goal race is what I'm talking about. And if you're running your goal race pace, it's the correct pace, let's say, for your ability, then you should be able to run comfortably for the first half of it. So tempo is the ability to run comfortably at your race pace for the first half of your goal race distance. Okay, let's go on here. Comfortable race pace running is the ability you want to build. It's incumbent on you to practice comfortable race pace running. As you may recall, comfort is an aspect of the intensity component of exertion. Tempo training, as opposed to speed work, is generally marked by relatively high mileage at relatively low intensity. Since intensity rises as duration increases, you'll need a way to keep intensity from rising above the comfortable level. Again, you'll have to consider the exertion structure of your tempo workouts. For example, tempo intervals could be 2 minutes long, as they are here while training at 10K race pace, or they could be 12 minutes long at marathon pace. But their common feature is the comfort you experience during the tempo and the recovery intervals. Okay, tell me about this one.
So it's the pace and the recovery that keep them both in that zone.
The pace and the recovery keeps them in that zone. Tell me about that.
Comfortable and very comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So you're running X pace, whether it's the marathon pace or the 10K.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going over comfortable. And then the recovery time you're given gets you ready to do the next one comfortably, the next set.
Yeah, that's a hunch on your part, but it's not what
No.
you see here necessarily.
Okay. Yeah.
What
they have in common is that they're both
in the same range.
Same
is
range,
what that's
yes.
saying. But you've pointed out that the 10K pace is faster than the marathon pace, right?
Yes.
And so how does that explain the difference in the workout structure?
So the 10K workout would be a little faster, but it would still be comfortable.
Yeah.
And then the marathon tempo would be slower. It'd be more very comfortable.
It's slower,
Yeah.
but it's still comfortable. So how do you explain that?
Is it mental?
Mental? Uh-huh. Yeah.
That you're like, oh, this is a 10K. I'm going to go for this. Oh, this is a marathon.
No, it's not mental.
Okay.
Okay, the answer is what we've seen before, and that is the longer you go, the greater your intensity. So we're measuring intensity, see that?
Okay, yes.
And we're doing two different types of workouts. So you got 16 2-minute intervals there versus 4 10-minute intervals. And so the longer you run, the higher intensity goes at a certain pace. So it takes longer to get up to the comfortable level with the marathon pace. It doesn't take as long, only 2 minutes, to get up to comfortable if you're running 10K pace. That's what that says to me.
If your goal is a faster pace, you should be doing a shorter interval, but you keep it comfortable.
Because that's the rule.
That's the rule. Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's very well articulated. You're catching on here, Charlene.
Oh, it's about time.
You're going to be an advanced athlete pretty soon.
I hope so.
Here we
It's
go.
been a long way coming. I feel like every coach, everything I've read is like, oh, when you're doing tempo, it should be uncomfortable, but you should be able to tolerate it for like 30 minutes. Everybody's saying this. You have to run a little bit uncomfortable. But then I feel like every time I do that, it's just not sustainable. So I just thought I just was really bad at running, but now this makes sense. Like, why does everyone think that way?
Because they don't understand how the body adapts to exertion,
Right.
to effort. Tempo runs, according to the people that you're working with, are longer, sustained, high-level exertion runs, right?
Yes.
Okay, so they don't tell you exactly what level you're supposed to run at, and they don't make a distinction between tempo training and endurance training.
No.
So you've got tempo training, which is high volume, low intensity training. And then you have endurance training where you take the same pace and you take it longer than comfortable. So what's going to happen?
You're gonna crash.
No. Think about it now.
No.
Think about it.
Okay.
Think about it.
Okay, wait. Say it again.
Yeah. You're doing a sustained tempo run at your, let's say, 10K pace. Doesn't matter. It could be half marathon.
Yeah.
And the longer you run, what happens?
You get more uncomfortable.
Yeah. So you're building what ability?
You're building endurance.
Yeah. You're building endurance. two different abilities.
Mm-hmm.
See what I'm saying?
Yes.
They don't make the distinction.
No,
So now we're building tempo, and we keep it comfortable because that's the tempo training rule. So you go as long as you can and keep it comfortable, and then you rest, and then you come back and you do another one. You know, keep it comfortable all the way through the whole workout. Now, if you want to build endurance at the same pace, then you go longer until it becomes uncomfortable. You sustain the pace until it becomes uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, now you're catching on
Yes,
to
I am.
what is going on when they're telling you that
Yeah.
stuff, and you keep butting your head against the wall, right?
Yes.
Yeah, because they haven't made the distinction for you. But now you
Oh,
understand, right?
yeah.
So you can put it in context and you can do it correctly in the future. Let's talk about tempo for a minute. How do you measure tempo as one
Power.
of the 5 components of exertion? Heart rate, breathing, power,
Yeah.
tempo, and intensity. How do you measure tempo?
Measure tempo.
Very slow, slow, quick,
Is it pressed,
rapid,
rapid, and
fast, very fast.
very fast?
Okay, so tempo is just your cadence from very slow to very fast. That's all it is.
Oh gosh. Okay.
So you're practicing a tempo now, and what's the difference between tempo and pace?
Okay, so tempo is cadence. Is the speed of your cadence?
No. They're two different
Oh,
concepts.
yeah. Pace.
You know what pace is. You use it all the time, you know,
do.
10 minutes a mile. It's pace, minutes per mile,
Minutes per mile.
or
Oh,
minutes
that's
per
all it is.
kilometer. So you see the difference now between tempo and pace.
Mm-hmm.
They want you to run a certain pace.
Yes.
And I'm saying that pace is not important. The tempo is important. And not only that, but take a look at this now. I'm going to go at a rapid tempo, very slow pace.
Ah, I see.
Got it?
Yes, I see that now.